Satnam and welcome. My name is Salima, yoga therapist, and you're joining in live of Yoga Vision online. So today, by much request, I'm covering off how to create your Kundalini yoga practice at home. And this is based on lots of emails that I've been receiving, some of the comments in the chat.
Satnam and welcome.
Really
My name is Salima, yoga therapist, and you're joining in live on Yoga Vision online. So today, by much request, I'm covering off how to create your Kundalini yoga practice at home. And this is based on lots of emails that I've been receiving, some of the comments in the chat. Satnam and welcome. My name is Salima, yoga therapist, and you're joining in live on Yoga Vision online. So today, by much request, I'm covering off how to create your Kundalini yoga practice at home. And this is
all right. So let's continue now. The opportunity that we have in front of us is to really look at a few different topics. One is, what is Kundalini Yoga? How to establish a daily practice. Number 3, what is mantra and how does it work? And then finally, secondly, what is the purpose of breath work and meditation? And then finally, what to do if you're in pain or menstruating during this time. So we are going to cover off all of those topics, and in just a few moments, an opportunity for us to discuss a little more. Okay, so without further ado, what is Kundalini Yoga? Just had a little technical challenge there, and I'm hoping that we're still live, and here we go. So what is Kundalini Yoga? This is a really important thing to understand first and foremost before starting off into your journey. Number 1, it is the yoga of awareness. And by yoga of awareness, meaning that the term Kundalini actually is a generic term. It refers to consciousness, and it's really the basis of all yoga practices. It's part of an esoteric or spiritual understanding of moving through life with a broad understanding of what is consciousness. And when you're conscious, you're awake, you're aware, alert, and alive, and fully feeling all of that, you take on a different stance in life. And that's really what yoga is all about. Kundalini Yoga does this very specifically. And it does it by holding the body in specific angles and triangles. And so when you're holding your arms, for example, at a 60-degree angle, you start to energize the heart, energize the kidney meridian, which allows the body to flow energy a little bit more freely through the nervous system. And all of this has a very healing effect. And so for those of you who have been practicing for a while, you know that this is part of the reason for practicing. Our nervous system is really the conduit of information that goes from the brain to the body, and from the brain to the body. And so when your nervous system is running smoothly and in a strong way, then it becomes much easier to process information, to deal with a challenge, to handle our emotional outlook, to take on challenges, to rise up, to level up. And that's why the idea of raising Kundalini becomes such an important and in some ways a spiritual quest. And so I just wanted to define that term first. So Kundalini is consciousness. And sometimes it's depicted as the energy of a snake. So that's the symbol, is a snake. And really speaking, it resides at the base of the spine. So at the base of our spine, we have an area that is holding that spiritual and psychic energy. And when we move in specific rhythm, and when we breathe in specific ways, hold the body, lock certain muscles, that energy, that consciousness starts to rise and starts to infiltrate all of the other cells in the body. Sometimes it's depicted as rising through the chakras, energy systems, or energy or wheels. in the body system. And for the most part, it's really about how do we live our day-to-day, live our day-to-day life. And so when you're in a yoga class and you're doing an asana, that's great. If it looks good and it feels good, that's great. And what's really important is what happens when we step off the mat. So Kundalini, the generic term, then gets captured into what is called Kundalini Yoga. So then what is Kundalini Yoga? It is really specifically dedicated to moving this energy, to using the body in alignment with itself in order to raise awareness, raise consciousness, so that we can live deeper and more fully, more completely, and really truly in our Satnam. So Satnam, you've heard me chant very many times at the end of each class, truth is my name. And each one of us has our own specific and honest truth. And that's really what this practice is all about. It's embedded in all of the teachings, in all of the meditations and the kriyas, and all of that has an impact, especially if you're practicing regularly, and especially if you're involved in the practice, not just in terms of working on the mat, but taking it out into the rest of your life. So very quickly then, a couple of other things that are important to know. What is tuning in? Tuning in is the beginning of our practice. And this is the time where we're settling in, taking a few deep conscious breaths and using the Adi mantra, Om Namo Gurudev Namo. I bow to the teacher within. I call on my highest consciousness. So that mantra unifies all of us, unifies us, the finite, with the infinite. It's a way of bringing a class of people together. It's a way of tuning into the universe and the creative energy that is in the universe. And that's very distinct about Kundalini Yoga. One more term I think it's important is that you may also hear this mentioned a lot is the word Kriya. And a Kriya is a specific set of exercises designed to bring about a specific effect. So, for example, one of the most popular videos on this channel is how to practice Kundalini Yoga at home. It is a practice for the spine. And those 4 short exercises, tree pose, some squatting, some buttocks bounce, and side to side poses are really designed. All 4 of those postures done in that particular sequence are perfect for the spine. So Kriya really refers to a set of exercises, and that's how Kundalini Yoga is designed. So, I didn't come up with this stuff. It wasn't me who put the practice together. There are generations and lots of literature in terms of how to teach a specific thing, and all of that is preset. What a teacher has on hand is creativity in terms of what Kriya and what meditation to pair, what words and what language go into describing that particular Kriya. And then finally, how does this all come together to create a class and a holding of space and an opportunity for people to, for all of us as practitioners, to really feel our true nature, our true self, our Satnam. Okay, so I hope that helps. And this kind of begs the question too, what is Kundalini Yoga not? So what is Kundalini not? When I said that it's consciousness, Kundalini is consciousness, this is a moment by moment, hour by hour, day by day decision. Am I going to act in the way that I have always acted, thereby creating the same results? Or am I willing to do things a little bit differently? Am I willing to forgive? Am I willing to surrender? Am I willing to tell my truth rather than shy away or hide? And all of those become decisions that we make on a daily basis. And that is an ongoing life decision. Those are ongoing decisions that take a lifetime to really cultivate in terms of maturity and a true sense of what is Satnam. Kundalini is not a one and done type of experience. We can have flashes of insight. We can have moments of great clarity. And that is a good sign that Energy is peaking and starting to rise and flowing differently. But that in and of itself is not Kundalini. That in and of itself is not sustainable if it doesn't appear to you the next day and the next day and the next day. So I want to put that in perspective because it's very tempting. It's very tempting to hear the word and then go questing after an ultimate experience. And from my experience now, almost 20 years in the practice, what's really beautiful and what makes it so powerful is going to the mat every day and then stepping away and doing life every day just a little bit differently, making different kinds of decisions. So I hope that helps in terms of what it is and what it is not. Kundalini is it's a beautiful term, and let's take it for what it is: awareness and consciousness. The second question that comes up quite a bit in terms of personal emails that come my way into my inbox and here on the chat is how to establish a daily practice. So there's a few things that are important to know, is that the body really works best in repetition and routine. And you probably are aware of this, but maybe not applying it to your yoga practice. Let me give you a simple example. You may have a routine in the morning where you get up, brush your teeth, and have a hot drink, maybe a coffee, maybe a hot tea. And that's something that you do probably on a daily basis fairly regularly. Have meals at a certain time, have your snack at a certain time, have your rest at a certain time. And all of that is because the body starts to get comfortable with doing things in a specific order. And that's a good thing. It allows us to fairly simply program or unprogram certain things, certain behaviors or habits that we have built into our daily life. So my first suggestion is when you're establishing a daily practice, in other words, you've seen this practice, you know that it feels good. How do I do it daily? How do I make time for it? Number one is to establish a time in your day where you are most available. So I'll use myself as an example. I'm not so much of a morning person. So knowing that means that most of my practice shifts towards the later part of the day. That's when I'm relaxed. That's when I have time. That's when I'm not in a rush. And generally speaking, the house is fairly quiet. So that's how I've chosen to do my practice, mostly in the evening, because it's when I'm most available. If you're a morning person and you give yourself extra time before you need to start your day, maybe that's the time. Or maybe you take a lunch break or a 15-minute break at work some way, somehow. Maybe that's your time. And so that's my first idea, is first to establish in your day, where can it best fit? And then follow that as best you can. If from time to time you have to break away from that, no big deal. Your body will start craving it. It will start looking for it. And that's the way that you use your own natural rhythms to really come to something powerful for yourself. So that is repetition and routine, finding a specific time of the day. And then many questions come in about, well, what is a 40-day practice and why is it important? So the technology of Kundalini Yoga is just that. It's like a medicine. It's like a course of antibiotics or a course of vitamins or nutritional supplements of that kind. The best way to do that, to take a vitamin, for example, is to do it daily. And to think about doing that on an ongoing basis so that you can reap more of the benefits. If we do it once in a while, if you take a vitamin once in a while, you get a little once in a while type of result. But if you can do it on a more sustained basis, then the benefits really flow. So the idea of Kundalini Yoga is to do it the same way, is to choose a Kriya to start and then to do it daily until you get to day 40. You can continue, go to day 90, go to day 120, or even go to 1,000 days. Only you know what's really required. And just like any other medicine, there's an internal knowing. I need to stay with this. There's an internal knowing. I think I've had my dose. I think I've taken this in the best way that I can. And that's, again, using your intuition, using a sense of inner knowingness and allowing the Kriya to really speak to you, because they will. There are literally thousands of Kriyas. Remember, Kriya is a set of exercises. There are literally thousands, and there are thousands of meditations as well. So it can get overwhelming. When you're looking at my channel, for example, go through and look at some of the playlists. What kind of idea, what kind of momentum is calling you? Is it something that needs healing? Is it a level up that's required? Choose the name of the Kriya that will speak to you in that sense. And trust that inner knowingness. Trust that you have arrived here on this particular channel for a reason, and that there's something that you can really gain from it. And by the way, if we are just meeting for the first time, my name is Salima, yoga therapist, and welcome to Yoga Vision. And if we've been together for a while, thank you so much for being part of this journey. We've been around on YouTube for about 10 years and more intensely in the last year. So thank you for being here. Okay, so a 40-day practice, what will that give you? It takes 40 days to undo a habit. It takes another 90 days to confirm that habit. 120 days to be that habit, and 1,000 days to embody that habit. So your time is flowing in front of you. My first experience with doing meditation for a set number of days was Kirtan Kriya, and that you'll find that one in the Power Pack. Kirtan Kriya Sa Ta Na Ma was a calling from the heart. It's called the Divine Song. And when my teacher described it to me, she said, women who do this for 31 minutes, 90 days, for 90 days can have whatever they want. And I like that idea. I like that there was a goal in mind. I like that it was going to deliver on a promise. And I took it up. And I got past my 90 days, and there was something about it that kept calling and kept calling and kept calling, and I never gave it up. So 1,000 days passed, and that's when the two of us parted ways. But I remember that time very fondly. 1,000 days is about 3 years, and a very growth-oriented time. So just to give you an idea of what can be done and what can come about from this type of practice. So that's the idea behind 40 days. What happens if you miss a day? If you miss a day, you start from day one. It's as simple as that. Who's counting? Only you're counting. So if in your mind it's you say, fine, I'm just going to continue on, then continue on. The true technology says, well, if you miss a day, that means you're starting back at day one. And there's a divine intelligence around that. There are often times where the Kriya needs to be done for a little bit longer, and that's why you've missed it. And it's not just your human mistake. There's some order in the universe that's saying, stick with it for a little while longer. There's no harm. There's really no harm. And there's nothing saying that this is any mistake involved. There's something to be had in every recitation of every mantra and every repetition of every Kriya. So be with that idea and know that there's no punishment if you don't, or that you fall off and need to start again, or that it's time to move on. Okay? So enjoy that. That's number 2. That's my tip number 2, how to establish a daily practice. And this is all about how to practice Kundalini Yoga at home. We've also got a membership opportunity that you can take a look at in the description box. And if you're looking for a little more personal advice, we can sit down for a numerology consult over Zoom, and I can help you with that by looking at your date of birth and what it says about this particular time in your life. Number 3, what is mantra and how does it work? On YouTube, we are here in this place of needing to practice in silence. There are licensing challenges and also a sense of time and a volume factor. So oftentimes you won't hear music in the background of a Kundalini Yoga class. Now, that's a missing piece, because the power of music, the power of mantra, the power of singing, of bringing voices together is so very uplifting. And so I highly recommend that in your personal time, whether it's during the Kriya or whether it's outside of the Kriya, take a listen to some of the Kundalini Yoga mantras that are available here on this platform on YouTube. I have a playlist that I've put together, and that's very easy to access through the channel. Just look under playlist and Vanessa will post that for you. And what it does is offer you a chance to listen to the sounds of the universal vibration. What is the vibratory frequency of Kundalini Yoga? You'll hear it in those sound vibrations. Very powerful, very and very uplifting. So you can listen to that while you're practicing, or you can listen to that while you're doing anything, homework, working on projects for work, or even cleaning the house and taking care of the kids. It's a very soothing way to access the consciousness that is involved in this practice without necessarily getting to the mat. So that's another thing that I would add to practicing at home. Number 4 is what happens if you're menstruating or in pain. You have experienced cramps because of your period, or there's an injury, a pre-existing injury, something that's fairly recent, and you want to continue to practice, but you're nursing some kind of pain in the body. So let's start with menstrual cramps first. Number 1, for women, this is a time of sensitivity. Not fragility, but sensitivity. It's a time for us to turn inward. And when we turn inward, there is an opportunity to be gentle, to be graceful, and to use our intuitive awareness. So the idea here is not to do anything particularly vigorous. Some of the Kriyas have leg lifts, some of them have inversions like downward dog. And those are best left in terms of modification. So rather than do the full extent of those movements, to do something fairly light, fairly small, less than you would usually push yourself to do, or just sit it out altogether. I know that's hard to imagine. I know that it feels like we're giving ourselves a break or we're giving ourselves a pass. It really is not. Because if we continue to do a kind of practice that creates injury or pain the next day, then it really is taking away from what's on offer, what's really available to all of us in terms of our movement and our consciousness. So when I say consciousness, it's not just about the divine and God, but also how do we take care of the body temple? How do we have good relationships with the people who we live with and who surround us? And then how do we filter the conversation that's happening in the mind all the time? So I think that's really important, that we pay respect to our menstrual cycles. And if pain is showing up in the body, to do fairly much the same. In other words, if the Kriya is asking for squats, because you know I like squats, if it's asking for squats and your knees just don't want to do that, or that creates pain, then you do a micro squat, a tiny little squat. Or you come to standing and imagine yourself doing it perfectly. The mind is so powerful that you can accomplish a lot by thinking about it first, pre-visualizing and allowing your body to take up that practice from the inside out rather than the outside in. So you can still do a full and complete Kriya without moving a muscle. And why not? You still get all the benefits. You're still listening to the breathing pattern. You're still listening to the words of upliftment and inspiration. And so why not follow along in the mind? Okay, so that's covering off the topic. That's number four on my list, how to deal with menstrual cramps or pain. The final one that I have to offer you is the breath work and the meditation. This is probably the most defining part of Kundalini Yoga. Well, actually, there's a few defining parts. Let me break down a few of them. Teacher will always wear white, or generally speaking, will wear white. And there's very little demonstration from the teacher. And that is to give you full freedom of movement. In other words, we have in our brain something called mirror neurons. In other words, if I see you do something, then I want to do it too. If you're laughing, I want to laugh too. If you're crying, I want to cry too. If you're moving in a certain way, I want to do that too. And not all movement is good for all bodies. Some are more flexible, some are more strong. Some people have injury and some people have none. So really speaking, to focus on your own practice is why the demonstration is not there. And as a teacher, it's very important for all of us to be paying attention to you as a student, to give very crisp and clean guidelines for practice, instruction for practice. And that means completely being focused on what's happening around, rather than for me to take care of my own practice and move my own body while you're doing the same. The other way that Kundalini Yoga becomes very pronounced in the world of yoga, it's not the prettiest form of practice. It's definitely the most well-known, but if you've stumbled upon, it's probably because you like it and it's been very effective for you in your life. That final aspect is the breath work and the meditation. Please, whatever you do, don't skip out. Let this be a guiding part of your practice. We take something like 20,000 breaths every day, and very few of them are actually conscious breaths, which means that as we're breathing, it becomes more and more important to focus on doing that consciousness, to do it consciously. So each time you'll notice that when I'm teaching, each time we end a movement, there's a very pronounced breath. Take a deep inhale, and then exhale. Sometimes a little bit more guidance in the breath. Sometimes there's a root lock, a squeezing and contracting of muscles. That's to send energy upwards. That's to embellish what's already happened, to make it, to take the effect a little further. And the breath work really cues us. Okay, the work is complete. Now I can rest and settle into the impact, the effect of that particular movement. And creating consciousness around the breath brings healing, brings opportunity to reflect, and again, is about consciousness. So pay close attention to the breathing practice. Do your best to focus on it and to really be present for it. And then finally, the meditation. This is one thing that in the world of yoga studios, oftentimes, in the world of yoga and gyms, this is the part that's left out. And the truth of the matter is that meditation is the reason for yoga. So all of the physical asana, all the physical movement, all the change of heart rate, all the movement is meant to disperse energy, to allow energy to settle and relax, for the body to release some of that tension, and then for the mind to become a little bit more still because the body is still. So the meditation that comes at the end is really like your dessert. So if you think about tuning in warm-ups like an appetizer and the Kriya like a main course, you take a little rest and then the dessert arrives, that's the meditation. And the meditation is really meant to expand and to explode everything that you've done so far. Because your mind, your body, your spirit, your emotional state is ready. And in that time, you will do your most work. You will find the most impact if you stay on for that particular meditation. So I wanted to offer these ideas, these thoughts to you in terms of how to set up your practice. Specifically, if you're tuning into this particular channel, into Yoga Vision Online, and you're tuning into the meditations and the Kriyas, and you're wondering, how does this work? What's happening? How does it work so well? Here are the components. There are pretty much 8 classical yoga practices embodied into one. So you get the benefits of all of this technology rolled into one particular practice. And I would say in general, this is more of a spiritual practice. It's not to say you can't get your exercise dose here. And maybe for some of you that's important, but more so, this is about finding who you really are and making that connection between who you are, how I am, and the universe around, so that we have a good relationship between what's unfolding and how to get to the best results out of what is unfolding. And that's really what I think this practice is all about. And I hope that over the coming weeks and months, whether you're in lockdown now or you're experiencing a closure of your favorite studio in your local neighborhood, that you turn to an online platform and to notice what happens to your daily life if you're able to sit down and practice on a daily level. Now, again, it doesn't need to be 20 minutes or an hour or 2 hours. 3 minutes will do. And there are plenty of videos on this channel where you can really tune in and tap into something a little bit shorter so that you can really do the best with what's available here online, given what's happening in your daily life and what your home responsibilities are like. So I hope that's been of help to you. It's always a pleasure to be with you. I'm so grateful every day for your emails and what comes through. I hope that you have been thinking about when to do your numerology to get an insight into how Kundalini Yoga works. And then also to think even a step beyond that. How about Kundalini Yoga teacher training? How about taking this on for yourself so that you never have to come online and look for somebody? You can actually tune in and do that work yourself, not only for yourself, but for your immediate family, for your friends, for your colleagues, and that you can be a force of impact and leadership in your own life. I thank you very much for listening. My name is Salima, yoga therapist, and also shout out to Charles and to Vanessa, who have been practicing alongside me and helping to make sure that all of these videos go up and you're notified on Facebook and Instagram. It is a global community that's coming together, and I couldn't be more excited and happy to be with you. For now, I'm signing off, and you'll notice that we're going to be online a little bit more often, especially now there's a secondary lockdown here in the area that we are, and that's an opportunity for us to reestablish our connection with you. Lots of love. My name is Salima, yoga therapist. On behalf of all the crew at Yoga Vision, much love to you.